Hi Steve, lovely to meet up with you again at the range and do some further work on your swing. Particularly productive session this one, where we started to see some real changes in regards to the positions we were looking for during the downswing. The backswing itself started to change a little bit as well, which you'll see as we come towards the bottom footage on the right hand side a little bit later in this recap. Top left was your visit on the 20th of November, and we could see that what was happening was that the hips weren't really sliding forward enough. The radius of the swing was expanding, so the shaft was moving away from the right shoulder at too high a rate. The wrists were uncocking too fast. And as we come into the delivery position at P6, we can see that the butt of the club is not enough in line with the right leg. There's too much of a gap here between the arms and the side, and then we tend to get that sort of scoopy looking impact position. So we accepted that we weren't having enough hip slide. This is your swing early on in your visit 3 weeks later, where we're starting to see a slight improvement in the rate that the shaft moves away from the right shoulder. So this is very early on in your session. We start to see that the hips do slide forward a little bit more, and that the wrist hinge has been maintained a little bit longer, so you're not as eager to dump that shaft. There's a little bit more linear movement and a little bit more maintenance of the lag than we were seeing 3 weeks before. You see the condition of the left knee completely different. That's the hip slide kicking in, the weight staying forward, and you can see as a result of that the radius of the swing and the angle of the shaft is starting to tighten. But what we did say was that rather than go, looking for another piece to change, we still wanted that piece to improve more, so that we can really tighten the radius up. We start to dump the wrists a little bit at this point, start to maybe straighten the arms, a little bit eager to get the club back to the ball. So whilst it's a better move than we were demonstrating in November, it's still not quite as good as we want it long term, and we're still demonstrating shots where we're hitting the ground behind the ball slightly, etc, etc. So the feeling that we worked on was the idea of pressure point 1, so that's the hand onto the left thumb, and pressure point 2, which is the pad of the left hand against the grip. And the feeling here, or the image you have here, is that by the time the shaft reaches parallel with the ground, we want the butt of the golf club to be level with or past the buckle of the belt. You can see when you do that, there's much more separation between the lower and upper centre. The hip slide is going in there without you thinking about the hip slide, and that was an important thing. You were finding it, you understood that the hip slide had to go in, but you were finding it difficult to hit shots whilst thinking about sliding the hips. So this move now, we're working on the pressure against the left thumb and the pressure against the top of the club to straighten out the right arm quicker, tighten up the radius of the swing, and maintain the pressure throughout. And that in turn is getting the hips to move forward. So if we take a little look at what happens on this one when it comes to actually hitting the shot, this is sort of midway through the session. We're starting to see at the top the weight staying forward more. I mean, it's just a byproduct really of your body getting used to having it forward during the downswing, and it's maybe realising that, your reaction to it is, well, if it stays forward, I don't have to move it as far forward. So that's a byproduct of the move you've been working on. We haven't worked on your backswing at that point. The movement down now, again, hip slide going in, radius not expanding as fast, weight staying forward. And if we look now compared to where we were at the start of the session, there's a little bit less of a gap between the right arm and the side. The release point's moving a little bit nearer to the right thigh. Wrists uncocking at a little bit lesser rate. And then what we did then was we introduced the cone. Now, unfortunately, being an Everton fan, I gave you a Liverpool cone early in the piece. As soon as you got a blue cone in front of you, it was fantastic. Right, top of the backswing. Putting the cone in place encourages you to keep the weight forward to get the club to ascend quicker, and in turn has improved the way that the knees and the hips and the spine is working during the backswing. So a great move at that point. I'm just going to get rid of these for you here, and just bear with me 1 second while the software catches up. And what I want to do is to compare these two swings. So slightly better P4 with the cone in place. As you start down, get this to P5 and pause it. Bear in mind the transition on the left midway through your lesson was coming on nicely anyway, so that up to P5 we're looking pretty similar, and then a little bit more pressure into that lead leg, a little bit more weight forward. Now as you progress, we start to see that the shaft doesn't get dumped quite as fast, the handle's moving slightly further forward, slight less of a gap between the side and the right arm. Handle further forward, weight more into the lead leg. Arms starting to straighten out a little bit more on the way through. So things are starting to tighten up again based on your improved swing on the left. So the feeling and the concentration needs to be, as per the image of that email across, pressure point 1, right hand against the left thumb, pressure point 2, butt of the club against the pad of the left hand, and trying to feel like at P6 when the shaft is parallel with the ground, you want the handle, the butt of the club, to be more in line with the belt buckle when you're doing your drill. That's going to initiate some hip slide, it's going to control the radius of the swing, and as you saw the other day, when you do get it right, it's going to dramatically improve your ball flight. Good luck with it, and look forward to working with you again in 2015.